All right, this is the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. Today is Wednesday, March 20th, and it's 7:15, so we're ready to rock and roll. So, did everybody enjoy your food tonight? Yeah. So, Steve, John, you want to come on up? So this truly is my favorite Italian restaurant in Sherman Oaks. My wife and I, Jane, go to Osteria. I never pronounce it the right way. I'll let them do that. But we go there all the time. They have the best fresh pasta in the area. Period. Not just in Sherman Oaks, but I don't want to say Studio City because I haven't lived there. But definitely in LA. So I'm going to let these guys talk about the restaurant, and thank you so much. It was a great. Oh, before I do that though, welcome all you guys on Zoom. How many folks do we have? 122. One more?
No.
Okay, 122 at home. You guys get missing a great meal. So thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Sing us on too.
Okay, well, you had our food, so that is, lesser version of what you get actually sitting down. Captain knows that it's pretty good. See him about once a week almost.
Tell them what I said about Italy.
Says that our pasta is better than what he's had in Italy. And actually, we do get that a lot. I spent a month in Italy in August, and I was craving my own pasta. So we've been around. We have a location on Melrose, about a block east of Paramount Studios. And that location's been there since 2005. We're Cal-Italian, and I guess we could be a little hip, but we've been doing what we've been doing before all these other hip restaurants have hit the scene, and usually we outlive them all. So we just everything's fresh, farmers markets. We have our own private farm in Brentwood. Everything's made from scratch, in-house, and the biggest thing that kind of sets us apart, and we had a huge staff meeting today, is we truly take care of our staff. We put them first. Through the pandemic, we doubled down on that. We gave our staff everything in the world. We kind of suffered through it, but it's paid off in gold, and I think you can attest our service is better than most that's going on in LA, and especially as hospitality has been in a decline as people are trying to cut costs and get people in and out. We still believe in hospitality and values. So we're there on Ventura between Guitar Center and Costa Cadillac. We're always there. See my bearded, grumpy face at the bar on my computer every day.
We're excited to be part of Sherman Oaks' growth in that block in particular. I know it's new terrain, so it's exciting to be kind of early to this, what I think is going to be more and more growth. When we first saw that block, probably toured that space 3 years ago, actually it was pre-COVID, 4 years ago, when it was the Fusion, whatever it was, and it was a sad state of affairs. So thanks for those of you who came out during COVID when we did the parking lot and had the benches going and the string lights. That was really fun, and everybody's kids running wild. And so we're happy to be part of Sherman Oaks' next chapter. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right. So if you haven't been there, go there. This is just a little taste. You guys, it's really a great experience once you go there. Jane Kaplan, can you stand up, please?
I'd like to also say it's Osteria La Buca.
Osteria La Buca. Thank you. So Jane is the new Jules, not really, but Jane is my wife, and Jane is in charge now of the restaurant of the month. So these guys are our restaurant of the month, and who do you have for next month, Jane?
Next month we've got Homestay.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do.
I thought you have Casa Vega.
That's the month after.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yeah.
See, now you have the next 2 months. So you folks on Zoom, make sure you mark your calendars. Third Wednesday of every month, we've got some great restaurants coming on board. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a couple board members that are not here tonight. Bob Anderson, Vice President. Maria Calvin, Vice President. Tom Glick in the back. Tom, you want to wave? Larry Slade, where are you? Larry Slade's in the back as well. Larry, come on up here. Have a seat. Relax. Tom, come on up here.
He's gonna speak anyway.
He's going to speak a little bit. That's true. Okay. So if you guys have any questions about their committee deals, talk to them. They'll be here after the meeting as well. One thing that I always forget to do, this is an echo, isn't it? Hello?
What's the other one?
One thing that I forget to do is if you guys are not a member or if you guys at home are not members, make sure you sign up because we are a volunteer organization and we fight for the quality of Sherman Oaks. So if you're not a member, see me or Bob or any of the other board members. We're happy to get you guys going. It's a lot of money to join, but it's worth it. It's $45. Marty and Jill and Linda, Marty and Linda in the back, they're not there, they left, but they're, make sure you thank them. They do a lot of work with us as well. Okay, Tammy, you want to come up here? So can the other electeds, Ryan, I know you want to talk, and I think there's a couple other electeds that want to come on up. There you go. So Tammy is in charge of our newest committee, which is our police liaison committee. Yeah, so she's going to introduce, there's a couple of law enforcement officers here tonight. So she's going to introduce and she's going to give her own reports for upcoming meetings. So welcome, Tammy.
Hi, I'm Tammy Scher. I'm also the president of the board of the Sherman Oaks Encino Chamber of Commerce. So being with the Chamber of Commerce, I know about businesses. And one of the things I know about businesses is that if somebody tries to break into your place and trespasses, you have to have a trespassing permit. And a lot of businesses don't know that. So one of the things I'd like for our police to enlighten us with is, do we need a trespassing sign or permit as a resident? So I want to introduce first Captain Vargas. And this is Senior Lead Officer Jose Saldana.
Why are you backing away from that?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Officer Saldana. I'm the senior lead officer for the southern portion of Sherman Oaks. Officer Romo was not available today. She had some training today, so she's not here. On the trespass letters, for residential, you do not need a trespass letter. All you need is the person who lives there or the rent, who's in charge of that property to say that he's trespassing, and that's enough for us. For businesses like parking lots or commercial buildings, we do need signs that says no trespassing and a trespass letter sent to us, and we'll file it, and officers arrive when they're called that somebody's trespassing. They shall try to make an arrest on that individual if it doesn't live there, not doing any type of business. Since I'm here, I'm going to just give you a little update. There was a little flash robbery on 14500 Ventura Boulevard. There were 4 suspects entered the store with metal pipes, broke several smashed some glass, and took some purses worth over $55,000 of several items. So these suspects entered and fled on Ventura Boulevard. We do have auto detectives here because one of our major problems that we have in Sherman Oaks is not only just burglary from motor vehicles, but also grand theft auto. So he has something to tell you on. He's our detective, auto detectives in charge of all the auto detectives. Well, I'll give you a little Captain Vargas to say as well.
Thank you, Jose.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make my report real quick because I want to make sure that I give the mic over to Guy, who has some information about our auto thefts and burglary from motor vehicle. We're actually doing real well in Van Nuys. We actually lead the city, the valley in crime reduction. We're one stolen vehicle away from last year to make sure that we're even from last year. So I think last year, the same day, 4 vehicles were stolen. I need you guys to keep them in your person. Right? Do not keep them in your car. You keep this key fob in your person, you take it home and you leave it inside the house and not leave it in your car. Believe it or not, people are leaving these key fobs in their vehicle and they're getting stolen. If you do that, I promise you that we'll have a reduction in stolen vehicles, and we'll be doing a lot better. And you'll be helping out Van Nuys. We are leading the valley in crime reduction, and I made a pledge to you all and to my office and stuff, that we're gonna be number one in the valley, if not the city in crime reduction, and we're meeting that goal so far. But I'll pass the mic over to Guy, who could talk to you about some.
Hold on, before you pass the mic over. Don't you guys, what do you think of this new look?
Put the mic
The-
real close.
Closer? What about this?
So,
Better?
what do you think of his new look with his hair? Nice? Right? Hold on, there's a reason for this. Want to tell what you're doing this weekend?
It's aerodynamic. I'm running in our Baker to Vegas relay race. It's a 120-mile relay from Baker, California to Las Vegas. So I figured I'd get my hair, maybe burn a bunch of grease and stuff to make it slick and stuff, so I could cut like maybe about a minute from my rough last year.
6-minute mile, this man.
So thank you, everyone. I'm going to pass the mic on over to Guy real quick.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Detective Pereira. I work at Van Nuys Autos. I've been doing so for 29 years now. Basically, Sherman Oaks is doing fairly well as far as the numbers. In Officer Saldana's area, just the basics, over the last 2.5 weeks, we've had 3 GTAs, 7 burglary theft of motor vehicles. Of those 7, 3 of them were burglary for motor vehicles, and 4 were theft from motor vehicles. Breaking that down a little bit further, you had 1 catalytic converter theft and 3 license plate thefts. That's one of our problems right now throughout our area in Van Nuys. They're stealing license plates. Most people don't look at their license plates until they change their registration. So you might want to check them and see if your plates match your registration. They don't, let us know, and we'll get that kind of. They're basically doing it in order to what we call co-plating the stolen vehicles from other areas. So that's where we normally find them. And they're not reported stolen because people don't realize that they're actually missing from their vehicles. So for all you know, you may be driving around with a stolen vehicle, a plate from a stolen vehicle in your car. So please check. The other issues that we're having right now are with the catalytic converters. Priuses are still popular, but because they've hit them so often, it's more or less they're replacing them with catalytic converters from aftermarket or with less precious metals, and that's what they're after. That's where the money's at. So if you don't know, what they're doing now is they're transitioning to Toyota Corollas. So that's the most popular vehicle right now, where they're taking catalytic converters off of. We have a problem still off and on with tandem parking. If you have tenants or you yourself have a parking space where you park tandemly, like the captain said, don't leave your key fobs or keys for each other's vehicles in the cars just to save yourselves a little bit of time. Because a lot of times they steal both cars instead of just one. The last thing, well, not the last thing, but we're having a little bit of an uptick at Fashion Square Mall. So if you do go shopping there, make sure that you basically, as we say, hide it, lock it, keep it. They're getting into these cars because they're getting a little bit more sophisticated. They're starting to use a lot of electronics to try and bypass the locks. They're also doing what we call, they're using signal jammers. So they're jamming your signal when you try and lock the car. You may hear something, or you may have thought you heard something just because you're used to basically hitting that key fob and it's basically locking the car, but it's not actually locking. So they just walk up after you walk away and they enter the car and they steal the property. Big problem right now, and it's been a problem for the last 2 years, it started on the East Coast, are the thefts with Kias and Hyundais. Kia had the idea of using ignition switches that are made of plastic, and they aren't using what we would call a transponder. So a key that has a chip in it that matches to the computer, so the vehicle, when they try and start the vehicle, it doesn't start unless the transponder matches. I have an exemplar here. So basically, this is an ignition switch from a Kia. What they're doing is, key won't be. They'll basically take a screwdriver and they'll put it in the keyhole, and they'll basically just wrench on and this piece comes out. Inside of here is like a tank. Everybody has a USB in their car most of the time these days. It fits right over this tank in here. They turn it and it starts the car right away, and they drive away. This is what they call the Kia Challenge. It started on the East Coast. If you Google it on YouTube, they'll show you exactly how to steal a Kia or a Honda.
We don't recommend you guys do it, right? As we learn to do it.
That's pretty much all I have. I thank you very much for your time. If anybody has any questions, I'll be around here for a little bit.
And just a quick update, I know that last night a news report came out about Casa Vega being vandalized. I just want to give you guys an update and stuff. We have identified the suspect. He is a local transient. We do have wanted flyers that all officers have, and we're hoping to have him under arrest in the next few days. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it for Los Angeles Police Department. And thank you, Tammy. Tammy? She's busy flirting. All right, thank you. Okay, we have a few electeds. Come on up and tell us what you're here for.
Hi everyone, Lindsay Ember from the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. We have a free spring tree adoption event, effectively a tree giveaway at the park. It's over at the main side, so on Houston Street. Out there, it's Saturday at 10 o'clock. Come and adopt a tree. CD4 is also helping out with some succulents. In case you don't have a yard at home, you can take that instead, and rain barrels. Visit us online at shermanoaksnc.org to get involved. We have community meetings, including our monthly board meeting that goes on here, generally the second Monday of every month. Thank you.
Brian?
Okay, hi everyone. Oh, that's not great. Ryan Nahari. There's less feedback on this side of the room. My name is Ryan. I'm the Sherman Oaks Field Deputy for Councilmember Nithya Rahman. So on March 11th, which was last week, we just wrapped up our 311 week, which was a national week, basically making sure that we are advertising all the different services that the city has, and different ways to use 311, either through the app, online, or calling 311 for potholes, graffiti requests, bulky items, really anything, just making sure that everyone's getting their tax dollars back to them. So we wrapped it up just last week. I wanted to let everyone know that the speed hump application, if you need one on your street, the deadline, or not the deadline, but the application opens tomorrow at 9 a.m. So if you live on a residential street and you have one lane of traffic going in each direction and you have a speed of less than 30 miles per hour or less, you can apply for speed humps. So tomorrow you can visit the DOT website to apply. And then finally, in addition to other programming that we're offering, we're having an additional concert in the park. It's going to be a Beatles versus Stones tribute band. So very exciting, April 14th, which is a Sunday, 5 to 8 p.m. here at Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Park, right next to the Recreation Center. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Hope you'll join us. And if anybody has any questions or needs any city services, I will be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Hi everyone, my name is Myrna Escobar and I'm the Field Deputy for Supervisor Lindsay Horvath. All right, so on February 27th, the supervisor submitted a motion to audit LASA's fiscal operations. This includes an opportunity to maximize public investment in our regional homeless service centers overseen by LASA. Since the first year that the declaration of homeless emergency was announced, we helped transition 38,000 people into interim housing and 23,000 into permanent housing. The number of mental health outreach doubled into 11,000, and that includes at-risk people who were prevented from becoming homeless. On March 6th, the supervisor proclaimed March as Women's History Month in Los Angeles County, as well as March 8th as International Women's Day. Along with Supervisor Solis, they proclaimed March 2024 as Veteran Women's of the Month. On March 4th, she announced the beginning of June 1st, unleaded aviation fuel will be commercially available at the Whiteman Airport in Pacoima. This is a result of Chair Horvat's November 7th motion to reimagine Whiteman Airport. Metro hosted one meeting. The first meeting was March 14th regarding the East San Fernando Valley Light Rail Transit Project, and the second meeting will be held virtually over Zoom on Thursday, March 21st from 6 to 7:30. That's all I have.
Thank you, Myrna. And if you have any questions on any of those, Myrna's going to be here all night long. So we have, actually, Ethan, you want to come on up here? Ethan was the candidate in the last CD4 election. He just wanted to say hello and tell us the results.
I did. Hello, everyone. It's really good to see you. I don't know if you've heard the results, but I didn't win, which is very heartbreaking. But congratulations to my opponent for her success. But I didn't just want to come here tonight to tell you that I lost. I wanted to come here tonight to say thank you. Before I ran, I'm not a politician. I had never done this before. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I knew I'd be meeting people across the district. But I didn't expect to fall in love with the community as much as I did. And especially Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. You guys have been so warm and welcoming to me. I feel in some ways more connected to Sherman Oaks than I do in my own neighborhood. And it has been such an honor to get to know you all, and I feel so connected. And I just wanted to say thank you for your support, thank you for your love, and thank you for having the best $5 dinner around, because I'm gonna, especially because next week or next month you have Home State. You can get one taco at Home State for $5. So I'm gonna be coming and hopefully getting two. And I also just wanna echo what Matt says. I'm not just here as a former candidate. I am also a member of the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, a dues-paying gold member, which is a little bit more. And so, challenge to all of you out there, if you believe in the mission of Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, please contribute, please be a member. I am, and I hope to see you all next month for Home State.
Gold members get 2 tacos next week.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you for running. Thank you for doing what you do. And don't be a stranger. We have a new business in Sherman Oaks, right? You want to just stand up and introduce, what is your name?
My name is Christina.
Christina, what's, real quick.
And we recently opened a new medical spa right on Ventura. If you guys know where the Regency Salon Studios are, so we are right in there. I have business cards, and we provide services like bonus, fillers, mortgage aids, which you're probably familiar with, like lasers, so many different things. So yeah, and thank you for such a welcoming.
So welcome to the neighborhood, and she'll be sticking around afterwards if you want to get her business card. Thank you. We have a couple committee reports, and I'm going to get right into Jill, Maria Calvin, then Larry, and then Bob. Maria, come on up. Larry.
Hi, everybody. So I have 3 updates. One of them is for the housing element that I think you all remember. The city is rezoning LA, and they had proposed possibly putting apartments in single-family neighborhoods, and we formed United Neighbors and went all over the city trying to make maps which showed that we didn't have to do that to neighborhoods in order to get the housing we needed. So we made enough noise that the city actually informed us, if you remember, around November that they were not going to touch single-family neighborhoods. And 2 weeks ago, we actually got the maps released and we checked them. and all over the city, there is no overlay on single-family neighborhoods. So, yeah, that was great. So the next thing we're working on is ED1, which is the mayor's executive directive, which allows 100% affordable housing to be fast-tracked through the city process, and it's been very successful for the city. The only problem is that it had no restrictions on what could be an ED1 project. And so the first problem was, if you remember the Ethel project, when they came back and said you couldn't do it in single-family neighborhoods. But there are a lot of other problems that have come up, and we decided to work with the mayor's office. And for the last 2 months, we have been working on guidelines, and we came down with 10 that the mayor's office supported. And we decided to rally all our troops again. So every neighborhood council, a lot of homeowner groups throughout the city have all submitted support for these guidelines. And we're now in the process of meeting all the council members that are part of the Plum Committee, which is the Planning and Land Use Committee of the City Council. So we're getting some positive response, but we will be doing a call to action for all of you to write letters. We'll have the letter written, but we'll need to send, let everybody know we are trying not to stop ED1 projects, but the ones that are problematic, that are asking enormous amounts of exceptions, we want them to go through discretionary approval, which means they have to go to public hearings, they have to look at environmental impact, etc. So that is one thing we're working on now, and that's ongoing. And the last thing is...
Maria, what's ED1?
It's Executive Directive 1 from the mayor. And it is now going to need to be an ordinance in order for it to have power, and it's going to be made permanent. So that's why we're working to try and get guidelines into the draft ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She speaks very, let's hear it from Maria, the work that she does. And she uses the word try. This woman does not know the word try. She gets things done.
I don't know.
Fantastic.
The last thing I have is the other way the city can rezone our neighborhoods is through community plans. And they are slowly being released now. And we have northern Sherman Oaks, which is like between Burbank and Oxnard, which is just now been released. And these maps are very hard to understand. So my husband, who chairs the Planning and Land Use Committee of the Neighborhood Council, has actually 3D'd these maps so you can understand what the impact is. And again, be prepared, we are all going to get a lot more density. But we're trying to figure out how to balance it so we all can live well here in the city. So we will be looking at these maps. By May, we'll have the rest of Sherman Oaks, and then we really want everybody to look at what we're being hit with. And Jeff, your meeting is the vision meeting, which several of us are part of, is going to be April 4th at 6:30 at the library. So join us so we can look at what's happening. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Bob. Save the best for last.
Hi, everybody. I'm the person who deals with Metro on the Sepulveda Pass project. It's been an interesting last couple of weeks. I got pretty damn mad because they never tell you anything. So just at the end of March, I sent them a very nice letter that said, we demand you answer these 20 questions, or else we're going to go to the governor and the Department of Transportation and tell them you're lying to the public. Well, they actually replied to me the next day and said, we're working on it. And I gave them 15 days, and they delivered it at 11:30 p.m. on the 15th day, and basically told me from the CEO of Metro that fortunately they managed to find out that all these questions had already been answered in public, and so that's the end of this. And I was kind of depressed. I said, God, I made these questions really hard, right? Well, on Sunday, I actually read them in detail, and I figured out that 18 of them didn't answer the question, and one of them kind of didn't, and one did. So they got 1 out of 20. And I wrote her back yesterday and said, thank you very much, but you lied to us in all these questions, and everything you said was irrelevant, and we give you 7 days to answer them again. And I haven't heard back yet, but it should be very interesting. So we'll keep you posted at the next meeting. I have a friend who emailed me after reading the letter and said that I ought to get a taster because, and I have another friend and he wrote one in, he said it to him too. So my friend said, well, I'll pay for tasters for both of us because we're afraid we might be poisoned, but we'll see. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, so Larry chairs our unhoused committee, but that's not what he's going to talk to you about tonight, right?
That's right.
Okay, he's got something very, very important for you guys to hear about, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Just want to give you a quick preview of next month's planned meeting. We're going to have a panel discussion that I'm going to help facilitate, and Captain Vargas has agreed to participate in. The subject matter is going to be avoiding being the victim of fraud or the victim of a scam. We live in an environment now where people can communicate to us in 800 different ways, and when they pick us out, it's not out of the blue. They know who we are, they know our preferences, they have a lot of data on us. They're able to target us for things that they want from us in a way that they never have before. The senior citizen community is particularly vulnerable to this type of thing, and it is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, robbing people blind by fooling them and scamming them. So next month, we're going to have a panel discussion about practical ways to make sure that you can avoid being a victim yourself.
Thank you, Larry. All right, Jill, what are you doing over there? Come on, Jill. All right, so let's hear it for Jill Stewart. For those of you who don't know Jill, sit down, relax. She's amazing. She is a gem for City of Los Angeles. I've known you for 20-something years.
I'm not that old.
I know, either am I. Sit down, relax, you're making me nervous.
I don't want to sit down.
Okay, you don't have to. See, she does exactly what she wants, and I love it. So Jill has been either the editor or the reporter for the Los Angeles Times, for LA Weekly, for Buzz. She's now the city editor for the Daily News, the Los Angeles Daily News, which is here in the San Fernando Valley. When she was a reporter, she was fantastic because that's the way journalism was when my father was in journalism for the Herald Examiner and for the Los Angeles Times. And that's when I got to know you, because she would just call a spade, and she would go after people that you didn't go after back in the day. And as a matter of fact, well, I won't go over that. I'm not going to. But anyway, we're very blessed to have you here tonight. And I know a lot of folks were very excited to hear what you have to say, kind of about the state of journalism, because like so many things in front of our eyes, journalism has changed so much. And with the overusage of phones and these 2-second news blurbs that people are being fed instead of you going to the newspaper and actually reading the stories you want to read. You're here to talk about kind of a lot of things, as far as what's happening, but we're excited to hear. I've got some questions, but why don't you start off and you go and do your thing. Jill Stewart, everybody.
Thank you. I have a little of a hoarse, so let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? About there? Yeah. Okay.
You guys, I changed the mic to this side because you guys, okay, here.
Is this good? Can you hear me now? Is this one better? I can't tell. I can't hear the difference. Closer like this? Okay.
I have an idea. You folks in the back that can't hear, move to the front seats.
I'll try to talk louder too. Yeah, it's interesting what's going on in journalism. I'll give you an anecdote that I ran into recently. When I was flying up there and staying with a friend, and I would stay for a few days during the week and write. I wrote this just totally opinionated column. That was my job, and there were like 40 or 50, maybe 60 reporters in Sacramento. Sacramento was filled with journalists. The press club was very active and big. everybody was in the hallways interviewing people. It was packed with journalists. Now I hear that maybe there are 10 reporters left in Sacramento. And the reason we were talking about this, I was talking to some friends of mine who are journalists, we were talking about it because we were really surprised to see some of the legislators who ran for office in the primary, and they came in some of them came in third and fourth instead of in second or first place. And people were surprised. And I realized, well, we don't really know what our legislators are doing now because there's very little coverage in Sacramento. Most people can't name their legislator anymore. A lot of people don't know who it is. They're not getting any press. And that is bad in two ways. You don't know who they are very well, and you don't know what bills they're backing. It's hard to figure out what's going on in Sacramento. So that's one problem in journalism, that when the papers started getting thinner and when the layoffs began several years ago, a lot of the people had to pull away from any sort of luxury of sending people to another city to figure out what those powerful people are up to. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see if Sacramento will sort of realize there's hardly any coverage and maybe not do their jobs as well. Journalists, one of the jobs of journalists is to sort of keep the government on its toes fairly and with facts, but let them know that the public is hearing and understands what they're doing. And if you don't have enough journalists to do that, what's the end game there? I had some bad feelings about it. There's nothing that I can point to, but just watch and see what you think, because people like you who are so active are going to have to step in at some point maybe and say, hey, what are you doing? So I hate to be depressing about journalism, but it's really shrinking. I saw the number of people who were laid off from the LA Times. It was a huge number. I don't remember if it was 200 people, but it was a really big number in the last few months. And that's going to have an impact. You're going to see it's more difficult to tell people what's going on in their neighborhoods when you're losing people and you're losing journalists. Good, award-winning journalists. So I don't want to be too depressing on that issue, but it's tricky. I don't think Instagram and Twitter are good places for real news, hard news, where every side is tried to be given a part of the story, and instead more and more opinion is fine, but it's not a great news source. So I think in the future we might have some problems with, I don't know, what happens when nobody's watching, essentially. So somebody said maybe groups like this will step in. You all have your own jobs. You can't watch City Hall, so to speak, all the time. So just keep that in mind, that it might be a tricky next decade. We talk about it in journalism quite a bit now. I wanted to talk a little bit about, where's my big fancy page? Oh yeah, okay. Here's my big fancy page, proving I did some work. I want to talk about some of the things in the Valley that I think are really interesting from way back and now today, that are probably of interest to you, and that might get more and more attention from journalists, because that the Valley is this vibrant place. I got this printout from the census. It says that there are 1.8 million people in the Valley. I thought it was 1.4, so I'm way out of touch. Is that right? 1.8?
If you add in Burbank and Glendale, 1.4 is the LA number.
Okay, so that's with Glendale and Burbank. Anyway, it's a huge number, and it's as big as most of the biggest cities in America. It's a big, big place, and it used to be. I mean, when I first moved here, it was much more calm and more kind of empty, and now it's getting less empty and it's growing.
If the Valley was its own city, we're not going to go back to that cityhood fight, but if the Valley was its own city, it would be the 6th largest city in the country.
wow, okay, that's saying something. It's really, and so it's got a lot of heft, as you probably have noticed, being on a very kind of very active group like you. You know that if you push for something, people start to listen, and that's because I think part of it is because the Valley is a big place with lots of people and a lot of energy and a fantastic mix of people. My block where I live is a mix of people from all over the world. It's incredible. It's so fantastic. And we're out here in the burbs. We're way out in the suburbs, and yet it's not just a bunch of rich, whatever. It's all kinds of people. And so I think it's just diversity. The diversity of the Valley is very, it makes you love the Valley. That's what it does. It makes you love the Valley. So, and I'm from Seattle, and it's also a very interesting place, but the Valley is more interesting than Seattle. Even though Seattle's got way more, restaurants and museums and all of that, but it doesn't have the mix of people that we have right here in the Valley. And I always give a hard time to my ex-boyfriend from that era. I always call him up and go, hey, Bill, you guys are getting really, the same. We're a really interesting crowd down here, and it really upsets him. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the past of the Valley, and then how it kind of fits into the future of the Valley. And it's all about it's all based on news coverage over the years. But the past, we had some really toxic, terrible things that happened in the Valley. One of them that we write about at the Daily News a lot is called the Santa Susana Field Lab site. And that's where we were working on rockets, and we were working on bombs, and we were working on all sorts of things, and we dumped everything in the ground. We left all this horrible stuff in the ground, and it tainted the ground and the groundwater underneath. Another place that happened was at the Rocketdyne facility, which is right next to the mall. If you go past the mall, you'll see this huge empty square field. It's just, there's nothing on it. And it's been that way for a few years. That was the Rocketdyne. And they have to clean up all that soil, and they haven't figured out exactly how to do it. And it could be there for years. So to me, those are iconic places that speak to this booming thing that was happening in the 50s, and the excitement of creating rockets and everything. But we didn't know then that it was going to be decades and decades of poison, basically. So the past in the Valley is kind of dark and scary in ways. Well, now what I see more and more is that it's kind of energized people. There are groups who are pushing for more from the state of California to clean up the sites. There are all sorts of neighborhood groups that know exactly what's going on and have expertise on their neighborhood groups. And so they've kind of turned it into a positive, because they are gathering around and learning about the past in the Valley and trying to make the future better. And I really admire that. So that's one piece of the Valley. Another thing, I was looking something up before I came here. I wanted to look at the Sepulveda Basin. It's got a lot of potential. It's going to be a huge green space as well as other things. It depends on kind of who wins the battles over the Sepulveda Basin. There's all kinds of needs and desires. But one of the interesting things, I didn't know this, I'm going to just read this because it blew me away. Sepulveda Basin, let's see here. It was created when vast amounts of soil and clay were dug out to build the Van Norman Reservoir in Granada Hills. I've never heard of it. What is the Van Norman Reservoir? I was like, what is that? So then they dug out a big hole that's why it's called the basin, because it dips down. Anyway, they made this hole, this kind of not real deep, but a hole while they got all the clay out. And then the winter came, and the rain came, and this huge pool was created. And get this, migratory and local birds took over this man-made thing called the Sepulveda Basin. So I was like, really? I had no idea. So the birds made it into this kind of amazing place. And what are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to show it off in the Olympics, and we're going to put trails through it, and there's going to be parks, and in fact, there's going to be a big, I think there's going to be a big battle over what to do with this massive amount of land. And of course, it's still a flood. It's for flooding too. It's for if the LA River floods, it's supposed to go. I believe the way it works, it's supposed to go into the basin and not go into communities. So the major players at City Hall are going to want it for that. And maybe there will be some sort of a middle ground where you can have a little bit of both. I don't know, but it just blew me away to find out that little fact. So bringing that forward to today. There's so many things in the valley that are about to get way more important or way bigger or way more important in different ways. And one is the LA River, which I've talked about. There's a lot of battles over what it's going to be. Now, I'll give you an example of the push and pull on that. And I spoke to Jules, who called me on the phone while I was driving over here. Jules called me, and I was telling him about they're going to tear down the Sportsman's Lodge, and they're going to put up a pretty tall building. I think 8 stories, something like that, really tall, right on the LA River, which people don't know is back there behind the parking lot. The river goes right past in the back, and they've already cut down most of the gorgeous grand trees, but they're going to get rid of a bunch more, and then they're going to build this building. And I thought that was amazing, right on the river, because across from it, right across on the other side, there's a green strip where you can take a walk with your dogs and stuff. It's very pretty. It's not gorgeous, but it's pretty nice. And so right across, there's going to be this 8-story building. And I wondered if the city planners were really thinking that out. But Jules said he was okay with it.
Well, Jules does not speak for the community.
But he thought it was he thinks it's a good idea. He's happy it's coming. So maybe I'm not figuring that out right. But anyway, planning is tricky in Los Angeles. You never know what's next door until you check. So that's one thing. We're seeing a lot of beautiful development that is bigger and taller than we are used to, and it's coming, and it's a lot of it's really, really nice. Another example of that is the Rams are coming. They've bought a lot of the property. They bought the empty, I can't remember what health company had the huge building.
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay, Blue Shield. It's absolutely beautiful parking lot. It's all landscaped and kind of curvy, and it looks like, I don't know, it doesn't look like a parking lot at all. It's gorgeous. It's a huge amount of property. And then the building. And I don't know what the Rams are going to do with that.
It's the old Warner Ranch, and it's not just that property. It's a lot of the property in that area. It's the old Topanga Mall.
They bought the mall.
It's going to be a Rams training center, and it's also going to be a concert hall. It's a concert venue, and it's going to be supposedly a soccer either training or anyway. It's going to be a huge development.
I thought the concert thing was a rumor.
Possibly is. Maybe that's where I heard it.
I'm not sure. Okay, so that's interesting. So there's a lot of big things happening. Another example is we noticed that Fry's had closed down during COVID, and it never reopened. And of course, that's been sold, and it's going to be developed into a big luxury apartment condo thing. I think with some affordable housing in it. I'm not sure. But so Warner Center and that whole area is about to undergo a massive additional revival. It's already very, very nice, and it's very expensive. I looked at some condos there, really expensive. But there's a lot more on a big scale, a very big scale. Another thing that's going on is, I already mentioned that the Olympics are coming, and we don't know exactly what that's going to mean in the way of change and upgrading and development, but it's going to be big. And then, of course, I want to pitch a little bit on CSUN, when I first came to LA, CSUN was not, not that it wasn't admired, but it was a small university college. It was just for San Fernando people. It was, it was, I don't know. And then it got bigger and bigger. And then when I got my job at the Daily News, we ended up doing a number of stories about the amazing things that the students and the professors are working on at CSUN, all sorts of crazy, fantastic projects like this one where they were trying to grow edible food inside a dark bus. It was like some kind of a big RV, and they had it all in water. It was all growing in water, and they put it all in there, and they had this whole plan, and they left it in there. I don't remember how long, and then they had food, and they put it in, and they sent it off to some. I think it was. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was maybe some homeless groups, and it worked. And it was just, and the photographs by the photographer were so gorgeous that you couldn't tell. It looked like art. It was a dark space with a glowing plant filled with food, and I didn't know what it was, and we had to write really careful captions to explain what the heck you were looking at. So I think CSUN, that's just one little example. CSUN is a pretty big deal now. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of innovation happening there. Some of the professors are well known. We have written a number of stories about highly just unique professors and what they do. One of them just got back. We wrote about her. She just got back from she went to the South Pole to look at something, I don't remember, something to do with the layers of the ice and what that means about global warming. It was really complicated, brilliant woman. But anyway, so CSUN, I think it's up there now. I think it's really competitive with a lot of the big universities. And I don't know how it worked, but it's just growing kind of along with the valley. That's my view. It's just doing what the rest of the valley is doing, which is getting more interesting and more better. So that's another one. And then let me see, do I have one more like that? Well, okay, so transit, which I think is one of your more controversial your ideas and projects. And I'm not going to talk at all about the Sepulveda Pass one because you guys know all about it. But I do think that it's called the East San Fernando Valley Corridor. It'll be right down Van Nuys Boulevard. It's going to dramatically alter what is happening on Van Nuys right now. And I believe they're going to buy out 80 different personally owned properties, businesses and empty lots and different things. And they're going to build this transit. And I think it's going to be a sort of a final link between this long bunch of rail and other types of mass transit that gets you all the way over to the other side of the hill and gets you up a little bit into the valley and all the way up to Chatsworth if you take that last bit all the way up. So if you look, it's a really long mix with maybe, it's not like a cross, but it's kind of like that. And it's going to bring a lot of change. It's impossible to say what that change will be, but for sure change. And I do feel a little bit sad for the people on Van Nuys Boulevard because when I first moved to LA, we used to go to Van Nuys because it had the most, just the most wonderful local Mexican immigrant cafes. And in those days, they had just arrived in many cases from Mexico. And little shops with things from Mexico and Central America that I'd never seen before. And it was really a rich, wonderful place. And yeah, it was working class and poor in many ways. And I don't think that something like that could actually survive on a transit line. It's going to be very fancy at some point, probably. But you never know. Maybe it will be working class people who kind of stick with it and aren't bought out. And I don't mean the ones that the city is that that Metro is buying out, but the people nearby, the people 2 blocks away, or will it be really gentrified? Those are always questions that the media start asking, and it's really hard to answer because you have all kinds of transit all over the world in very poor areas, and it hasn't gentrified those areas. So I think the key argument on that side is it could, in fact, be good for all the neighbors who live there. We'll see, only time will tell, but that's going to be a good story for newspapers in the future once those things are built. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here.
Awesome. We have a few questions for you. So, you know, it's interesting you talk about the east-west line, which will come at some point. Sepulveda Pass line will come at some point. I don't know in whose lifetime, but it will. But the San Fernando Valley, you know, almost 2 million people, has 2 subway stops. 2 subway stops. That's North Hollywood Station and Universal Station. So it's the end of the line and 2 stops. That's it. There's the only way to get from the East Valley to the West Valley is the Orange Line, and that just kind of goes through, you know, bus, you know, through traffic lights. It's a bus. So, you know, these things that they're talking about may or may not come. There's some of them are slated. It's interesting. You also talk about the Olympics and the Sepulveda flood basin. The valley does not get its fair share. It never has, and that's why a lot of folks did fight for valley cityhood years ago, just so that they could have proper representation. But and you talk about museums. The city has 38. On the city side, has 38 museums. We have 2 museums. One's in Sun Valley, and one's in the Gene Autry, which technically isn't really in the valley. So, you know, it is. I love the San Fernando Valley. I've spent 65 years in the San Fernando Valley. I grew up, went to Dixie, Milliken, and Grant, and I've seen it grow, and I've seen it grow in positive ways, and I've seen it grow in a lot of negative ways as well. And one of the ways in the negative is obviously the journalism. I mean, we used to have the Daily News was the Valley paper, the green sheet, and the LA Times had a Valley edition. And the Los Angeles Times actually had a facility out of Northridge. You know, all that is shrinking. So let's talk a little bit about journalism as far as local journalism. Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, we get people sitting at home watching us on Zoom. We get a lot of hits on our website for our newsletter as far as getting information. We get a lot of actual folks that go to the website and read it all the way through. We track that. You know, we put our YouTube channel as well. People go to that to get the news. But as far as what is the Daily News doing what is your paper doing to get more readership, to get more eyeballs on your website? You guys have a nice website. You have a nice social media presence, and you also still are in print. So what are you guys doing to go ahead and stay alive and stay viable?
Well, I don't know what the publishers are doing, and that's their job to make sure we don't go under and to make money. I'm on the news side of things. I mean, our goal on the news side is to try to. It's kind of tricky. It's to explain what's going on in Los Angeles because we cover things all the time that are not in the valley, but we are trying to have an emphasis on things that are in the valley. It's hard to do because you have all the action is in downtown Los Angeles, as you mentioned. City Hall is there. They did have finally one city council meeting in the valley about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They hadn't done that throughout COVID, is my understanding. And they used to do it regularly. How often was that? Once a month?
No.
No.
Once a quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
Once a quarter, where you could go to the city hall in Van Nuys, and the council members would be there, and they stopped during COVID. Now they had one a couple weeks ago. It wasn't well attended. I think I heard there were 70 people there, something like that. I think partly that is because people aren't used to it anymore. They've forgotten that the city council travels to the valley and holds meetings, and so I think they perhaps didn't promote it in a solid way. But I think that it's, I know of a number of cities where it's easier to understand what's happening right around you than it is to understand what's happening further away. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see who replaces Krikorian, who was an advocate for the valley, and he was also the president of the city council. He still is. He had a lot of power. They put a lot of power into the hands of the person who holds that site, that role. And he was very, he wasn't flashy and he wasn't dramatic, but he was, from a journalist perspective, if you called him up, he usually would call back. So he was what we call available. And that's always a good sign because a lot of people you meet in elected life they don't get back to you, they don't really want to talk to you. But he was quite like that. And Blumenfield also, very available. It was a good situation, I thought. Now, I think that I keep telling the team that I work with, I shouldn't call them my team, but the team I work with, and they're very independent. They do all kinds of stuff, and they work their you-know-what off. And they are always looking for valley stories because I hammer it into them. Have you got a valley story? Let's do something from the valley. It's easy to find great stories in the bigger Los Angeles, but if we're based in the valley and focusing on the valley, let's try a little harder on that. And they are. But if you have ideas, or if you know people in neighborhood councils who have ideas that they think are important, please email me, and I'll give you my email. And then I'll bother the various reporters, see if they have any time. Hey, what are you doing today? I try hard to find out what they plan for the day, because they have a great sense of what is interesting. And usually, if editors are always assigning things, you don't get the most interesting stories, because the editors aren't out there. They're not hanging out. I've been on both sides of this, so I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, the way to reach me is J Stewart, just J, the letter J, Stewart, at scnj.com. And SCNJ stands for Southern California News Group, SCNJ.
So
G.
Sorry, did I say G? Yeah, G, sorry. I was throwing my first initial.
So you've covered a lot of elections. What takeaways did you have from this last election, the March 5th? Were there any surprises, local, ballot measures?
Let's see, I was surprised at how poorly some of the legislators, I mentioned that, did, who were going for a different office this time, and they came in some places third, fourth. I was really surprised by that. Also, I think I was surprised that HLA got a huge victory, 66%, I think. It's very complicated what they're going to be doing, and I thought it was really tricky to understand when we were trying to put together the story and understand it so we could explain it to the public. And I thought because it was so much money, billions of dollars, and hard to understand, I thought that it would have a really tough time. But it came out really huge, and that tells me that people want, they don't mind losing their parking if they can get places to walk. I don't know if that's why people voted for it, but that's one of the pieces in that plan. They're going to use parts of streets when they're being fixed, and they're going to take away some of the parking and give people these walkways and things. And maybe people in Los Angeles are turning around to a different way to do things, less driving, more walking. I'm not sure what the message is, but it won by so much. 66% is big. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work. And the bicyclist crowd is really happy. They're thrilled. What I'm wondering, somebody called me and said, what about the fact that there's hardly any women still on bicycles because they don't want to be on the streets at night going home from their jobs, whereas the guys don't feel that bad about it. And so you have a lot of guys who are commuting back and forth at night, but women aren't likely to do that because they're safer in their cars. And I'd never thought about that before, but it makes sense. I'd be very interested to see how the gender vote was on that, on HLA. I don't know.
One of the folks that wrote in wanted to know, how many full-time staffers do you have at the Daily News versus part-timers?
I don't know anything about part-timers.
What is the staff of the newspaper at this point?
I think there are about 30 reporters in different departments, and we do have freelancers, but if we have part-timers, I don't know that they are on part-time. It's not in my area.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have a question? We typically don't go to the audience, but we did not have a lot of mail-in questions. Does anyone have any questions for Jill? No?
So if there's anything interesting going on in your neighborhood, please tell me. We do a thing every day called the A3 display. It's on page A3 of the paper, and it's 3 or 4 really interesting photos and a short, what we call a copy block of maybe 4 or 5 inches of information. And it doesn't have to be important. It just has to be visually interesting. And they're very popular. They're shared. They're on our site, not just on page 3. And they jazz up the newspaper because the photographs are beautiful usually. And they can range from anything from just anything. So please keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be some big deal. If it's something that the photographers can get to, and we can get some information for the copy block, it's a really neat little section of the paper.
So that would be emailed to you as well, or that's a different email?
Yes, send it to me. Send it to me. You can also send it ideas like that to our chief photographer. Some of you probably know. Is the name Musgrove? Do you know Dean Musgrove? Okay, he's been taking pictures. He's been taking pictures for a very long time, and he is the most awesome person to work with. He goes all over the city, from the beach to the mountains, up and down the 405, everywhere, and he's the most upbeat, nice, polite guy. He doesn't really fit into journalism at all, frankly. Anyway, everybody loves Dean Musgrove, fabulous guy. So that's kind of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Let's hear it for Jill Stewart.
Thank you. Oh, he has a question. Question in the back.
Since we're seeing the millennials and the Gen Zs not reading newspapers anymore, and they are starting to grow in numbers, where do you see the local newspaper in 10 or 15 years from now, if it's even a relevant publication anymore?
Can you paraphrase it and repeat it before you answer, just for the folks at home?
Yeah, I'm going to maybe rephrase it, but tell me if I've got this right. What do I think will happen to print newspapers 10 years from now?
Or, yeah, 10 years.
And, well, I believe in the United States, in the last year, 200 newspapers folded, mostly in smaller towns, and there's no real daily coverage in those places. It's going to keep happening. The online is going to take over, but a lot of these places that close down, they don't have outlets. They are not online. So we have hundreds of places in the United States that don't have any news about themselves right now. We'll see if the younger generation pops in with a good idea, but right now there's a kind of a shifting from the older crowd to the new crowd, and the new crowd isn't reading newspapers much. So that's scary, because if you're not watching, what comes next? If journalists aren't watching, most journalists believe in their hearts that if they weren't there, there would be more corruption, more problems in government, and that they kind of keep people on their toes. And I do agree with that view. So we'll see. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but it could happen 10 years from now.
So let me ask you, just to follow up with what Tom had asked. Since 2005, so in 20 years, America has lost 1/3 of its newspapers and 2/3 of its journalists. 2/3 of its journalists in 20 years. So his question about 10 years, that's already happened, that's already in the past. So would you, based on those simple facts, those two facts right there, what do you think is going to happen in 10 years now?
Well, yeah, I know about the losses so far. I think that, I don't know what to say. It's going to be a bad movie. You know, there's going to be problems. Local coverage is really crucial, and I don't know. I wish that some of the real billionaires of the world would get together. And I've seen some big money that they've put in to keep newspapers going, but it's just a drop in the bucket. It's a very expensive endeavor. It's all based on having enough people to be going out there, and people cost money, and there's no quick way to actually cover the news. So I don't know.
It's an interesting concept as far as journalists getting together with big money, because you have people like the Los Angeles Times owner. He's a billionaire. He puts his daughter in as the editor, and she's a Democratic Socialist party member. And a lot of folks I know that used to read the newspaper and looked at the LA Times for fair journalism feel that it's way too far to the left. You have folks in journalism, for instance, Elon Musk with X. That's the new journalism, and you've got a different kind of censorship. So we've got to be a little careful as far as what we ask for, as far as the billionaires putting their money into the journalism game. It's always been there. I mean, William Randolph Hearst wasn't a billionaire, but he was, in today's money, he probably would have been, but he had his stories that he wanted to have influenced into his favor. So it's going to be interesting what happens.
Really interesting.
Why don't you buy the Daily News draft?
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
Why don't you buy the Daily News?
Me? I don't think so. Thank you, though. All right, let's hear it for Jill Stewart.
Thanks very much,
We'll see you
everybody.
guys next week. Thank you very much.